Alrighty, well, this video will be a video about how to place your stop loss, take profit. We're going to be talking about our entry, stops, and target, how every trade needs it. There's going to be a lot of waiting in this video, so if you need, put the video at double speed if that helps a little bit. But in this video, we're going to be talking about when to raise your stop, how to raise your stop, how there are no actual rules in the market. It's just risking what you want and risking off of key levels, and so that the market can shield you. And we're going to be trading Roku on the left. This is a virtual account. It's not real money. If you want to see live money trading, go to Weenie Trades Live. So this is a simulator. We got a good $100,000, and we're just going to be looking to take some trades and show my thought process of where I place my stop loss, where I place my target, things of that nature. So Roku had this nice good demand zone. Notice how there's all this congestion. If you want to see another video on how I draw my supply and demand zones, comment down below. Let me know in the comment section how I get these zones, and they're not just another way to structure a trade. I don't always use zones, but I definitely have them in mind. So look, if you can see, Roku just tagged the bottom of the zone. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do different types of order types in this video. So let's market buy 10 shares of Roku. So this is about $2,000. This is on the right. If you want to learn another video on how we, structure our trade and take our shares, we can talk about that later. But we have 10 shares on the right, P&L open. That means none of this is closed. So let's get in our stop loss, because as soon as we get into a trade, we want to place our stop loss. Well, our loosest stop could be right here at about 20.44. That seems like a good area to set a stop loss, because if the market were to come underneath this level, we want to be out and we want to take our L. So our average cost is $223.76. That means we'd lose about $30 if Roku came down to that level. So keeping that in mind, okay, our maximum we can possibly lose now is $30. So if Roku comes and hits that, boom, that's minus $30. So Roku is pulling back right now, and we want to see, how it can, so right now we just took that trade right about there at 223.76. And as you can see, Roku's coming super close to the stop loss. It might hit, but we're testing the bottom of the demand zone, so it should be shielded. That's why there's support at the bottom of the demand zone. See how the wick is coming down? So yeah, feel free to go at double speed, but we're going to be talking about OCO brackets and stuff. We're going to be talking about wiggling in, wiggling out of our positions. So let's take an options trade on Roku since we're holding that support. We always want to use limit orders when we're buying options, and we want to look at the bid-ask spread. Right now I'm seeing the bid-ask spread is just way too wide, so I'm going to check the next expiration date. Okay, bid-ask spread, look at this, 570, 805. That's just way too wide. We need something just a little bit tighter, or we need Roku to just, settle down a bit. Settle down, Roku. So what we can do here is we can actually add 10 more shares right there, since we're starting to bounce. And so we added to Roku right about there, and we can change the number of our stop to 20. So let's do minus 20, and there's our stop. So now if Roku comes down here, we're going to lose a little bit more money, maybe about $45. However, we have a slightly better average cost and a pretty good position. What we can do here is, if you really wanted to, you could actually raise your stop just beneath the low of this wick right there, just to tighten up your risk just a little bit. And look at that, Roku's starting to break out. Technically, this is another buyable candle. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add another 10 shares on Roku right about there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the number of my stop, cancel replace order. Let's change this to 30. And now that since we added, I generally like to always raise my stop whenever I can. Whenever you're adding risk, you want to tighten up that risk if you can, and especially since we broke out of the demand zone. I don't want Roku coming all the way back underneath $222 a share. That would be pretty bearish technically wise. So let's see if we can hold the top of the demand zone, or if we start to fail. But Roku seems to be holding right now. The position is basically about break even, but we're just holding our stop nice and tightly. What we can also do is we can set our take profit. But like I said, I like to just trail up my stops to see where, to let the market take me out rather than me trying to guess a top. So right now we're going to actually try a buy stop order. So a buy stop order, before we were just buying the market, meaning we just give me the Roku shares, whatever the candle is at, give me those shares. But a stop limit order, we're going to right click and we're going to go over 224.70. That would kind of be the point of no return. Make sure you don't have auto send on, otherwise it'll give you the shares automatically. You go to edit, and then you, instead of limit, you hit stop. And that means if Roku goes above $224.70, tag me in. So I'm going to place that order right there. And there we go. There's our 10 stop. And what we're going to try to do is raise our stop. Actually, should have probably triggered me in. We're going to raise our stop once we get triggered in. What we're also going to see is if there's any tightening of the spreads of the option chain. Not too good of tightening spreads. So let's see if we get triggered in here, and we'll get ready to change the number of shares in our stop. As you can see, the trade is making money right now, but it's not enough to cover our risk. Roku should have triggered me in right there, but we put it over the 75, it looks like, so we'll see if that triggers. And once it triggers, we're going to change the number of shares in our stop. That is not triggered just yet. And the whole point of this is raising your stop among each of the candles, because at this point, you wouldn't want Roku to come all the way down to this spot. That would be pretty bearish at that point in time. So I wouldn't want to be in the trade, but I want to milk the trade for as much as I can while it's still uptrending and going up. So we'll see how Roku's doing. It still has not triggered in the extra 10 shares. If I really want to, I can raise my stop just a little bit. Just to cover some of the risk. We'll see the SPY has been selling off, but now it's showing a green candle, so SPY is on the right. So now we're just going to raise up the stop just a little bit now that we're starting to see a bottom wick. I want to reduce my risk just a little bit since we have 30 shares. That's about a little bit $6,000, $7,000 of equity. So we just triggered in, so now we're going to raise the stop. Now the stop still only has 30 shares of equity right now. So what I want to be sure to do is I don't want to be caught out of all of my shares. And look at this, over the high of the day, 225.51, I want to add to Roku. It's usually, Roku is generally a pretty good runner, especially in the morning, so I want to add over the high. So let's see if we can do that. Roku is showing a really nice strong green candle. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and raise our stop just a little bit more now. Now our stop is in the money. Actually, no, almost in the money. So there you go. Now our stop can come right in the money, right here. So 223.76. That would be the next area where if Roku came underneath, that would be bad. So right here, we just broke out. This was a nice good bull flag formation. We had this nice move up, and we had the sideways consolidation over that 224.76 level. And right there where we triggered into our shares, that's where we added to Roku. So now we have a pretty big position, 50 shares. So now we're just going to raise up our stop. I'm keeping the 30 shares stop because I don't want to trigger out of all of my shares. Don't want to trigger all of my shares. What you can do is you can actually place a looser stop. If we change the number of shares to 20, here's the looser stop that we can have. So we have two different stops going on. One stop is if Roku comes back underneath the former breakout area. And one stop is very further away from the structure of the market, still within the demand zone. At this point in time, I wouldn't want Roku coming back into the demand zone. So look, let's see if this red candle will tag these shares out or not. Nope, still staying alive. You want it to have enough space to where you don't get tagged out, but enough to where you can still preserve some profits. So this stop currently is in the money, as we say. So if this stop hits, we're still going to make money. Right now, the open profit is about $64. And let's see if the spreads have tightened up just a little bit on the option chain. Okay, here's a decent one, 425, 455. Here's one, 240, 257. That's usually a tight enough spread. We can enter in with a limit order, or we can enter in with a stop order. I wouldn't recommend doing a stop order with Roku. Or you can do a stop limit order. Let's try a stop limit order. Stop 257. And the most I'm willing to pay is 268 on Roku. Let's see if that fills. This is a simulator, so they do tend to give you really good fills, so it's not as good as real life. If that doesn't start to fill, okay, Roku's coming back just a little bit, coming back in just a little bit. So now we can leave that stop limit in. That's great. So now we can leave in the stop limit. Stop limit. Let's see if we can lower this just a bit so it'll lower the price that we get triggered in at. Let's see if that'll trigger. If you wanted to, you can add to this over here, and then you can just raise your stop. But now that Roku's really starting to take off, let's see. Okay, let's see if that triggers us in. So now what I want to do is, since I have 50 shares, I want to inch up my stop just a little bit, just in the money right here. 225.73. That would be the next shield of the market. I still haven't sold yet. I have $170 of open profit, and I still haven't sold. Now we've raised this stop. Let's try to raise this stop to all the way to break even. I don't want to give up any more money now. So now we're deeply in the money, and we're just raising our stop. So now Roku is starting to get really good volume, and we're hitting probably near my target area. So since we're nearing my target area, I want to raise my stop super tightly. I want to start taking some profits. Instead of just hitting sell market or giving a sell order, I want to trail up my stop as tightly as I can. There we go. So now still haven't taken profits, and we're just raising up our sell order. Still haven't taken profits, and we're raising our sell order. That stop limit never triggered, so kind of a dud. Stop limits are a little bit tougher to trigger. So let's see if this will tag me out. Nope, still has not tagged me out. And we're just raising our stop. Raising our stop. 50 shares of Roku is about a little bit over $10,000. And we're making $236 on this. And we're just protecting. So I'm going to try and leave this stop just so I can have some runners on. But Roku still is not tagged out. It has not came underneath the 228.40. Now it just did. And then there's your slippage, 228.01. So 40 cents times 30. Let's do some math. 40 cents times 30. 40 times 30. I should actually do this. 0.3 times 40. So this is the slippage on the trade. $12. So $12 of slippage. Not a big deal. And now we have 20 shares, and we're just riding the contracts. Or riding the shares, I should say. So now we have 20 shares, and our stop is basically at break even. So if Roku comes all the way back down, we're going to be giving up $60, but that's okay because we've already locked in a little bit less than that, 190 about. So we've locked in actually 190 minus 50. So $140 locked in. And we're sacrificing $60 to let Roku breathe and have some wiggle room. To let it breathe and have some wiggle room. It can come all the way down to the former breakout area and then come back. And that's how I like to trail up my stops. Instead of trying to guess the top, I like to let it ride as much as it can and then let the market tag me out versus me trying to guess a top. Although I can have a pretty rough idea when a stock is going to pull back. But let's try this with an option now, and let's do an OCO bracket. So here's a nice... I'm just looking at the bid, looking at the ask, looking at the bid, looking at the ask. Let's try and bid something just to get into an option contract and see how it is. See how it feels. Okay, it filled me right away. Thinkorswim is amazing. But this is also, you know... We're catching it on the way down, so things have greater liquidity on the way down. So let's clear the drawing set, and let's do an option OCO bracket. One order cancels the other. So we just entered this contract for $468. So let's see what kind of profit we can take. I think Roku will probably stall out maybe at the 231 area. So we just pulled in, we just right-clicked, we put in our closing order. What we want to do here to put in an OCO bracket means one order cancels the other. We have a take profit and we have a sell order. So let's have the chart up while we're making this. So what we want to do is we want to hit single order and we want to go to OCO. One order cancels the other. Then what I like to do is I like to right click and hit create duplicate order. And then I'm going to raise the sell order so that it says, see how it says expected Roku price 228. That's what it would hypothetically be worth. And we can just type it into, I like to type in a stupid high limit order, maybe 6.00. Let's see if that's about the 230 area. That's the 232 area. Can't hurt. Let's try the 232 area. And now our stop, how much do I want to lose on this trade? How much do I want to lose on this trade of Roku? Let's say I don't want to lose more than, let's put in a stop limit because we want to not lose too much. So our entry on this option was 468. So let's say I only want to lose about $40. So 468, that would be what? 428? 428. So let's put in our stop at 430 and let's account for some slippage and let's go down to maybe 420. And so now we have our take profit order in, we have our stop in, now let's hit confirm. So now there's our stop order and there's our take profit order right about that 232 area. At this point in time, look at this pivot that Roku just made. Look at this pivot that Roku just made. That's a support now. 227 is now support. So instead of me having to go break even on this, let's raise our stop. We can raise our stop ever so slightly, have still a very loose stop just underneath 225. And that would still be, a good revenue trade. I guess 225.25 is my new break even price. Or I'm going to raise it just a little bit more, maybe go underneath, let's go underneath 225.81. So there's our stop on our shares. We still have our stop limit from our option contract, which our entry on the option contract was about 227.30. So let's see how that goes. It is down $3 on the option contract. The bid is sitting at 440. The ask is sitting at 490. So if I wanted to try to get out, I'd get out right about basically break even or minus $3. That represents the midpoint. The ask is at 490. So if I want to put out a sell order for 490 and take $30 profit on the option contract, I could, or I can just wait. So let's wait and see how Roku is structured in the market. We're going to speed this up just a little bit. Speeding up. So now we're at the triple speed right now. We're at triple speed. And if Roku breaks these highs, you can technically add to it, but this is an extended breakout. It's a new type of trade. I would not be buying an extended breakout like that on Roku. It's a little bit stretched. We need to give it some breathing room right now. So we still have SPY on the right. We have Roku on the left. Our stop is right here at 226, just underneath. So we would tag out for a small profit if Roku hits that level. If we look at the level or the active trader tab, it shows you how much I'd make if I were to sell all my 20 shares at different Roku prices. You can scroll up and see, look, if we go to all the way up to 232, which is our ultimate target, that'd be an extra $136. If we hit our stop, which is right here just underneath 226, let's go to 226. 226 is, we would stop out for only $14.90. But we at least stopped out for profit and we gave Roku the chance to go to that 230, 232 target. So we're risking $50 right now to make another 140. See how Roku's starting to penetrate that level, that 227 level? Let's see if we can find a way to raise our stop. So the rules, rule number one in the market is there are no rules. And, oh, look, so our virtual Roku call was stopped out. That was the most we were willing to risk on that. We lost the $40 plus $6 slippage. So there's a stop out for you. It triggered. And let's see. This may trigger us out. Let's see. That actually probably should have triggered. I'm surprised it did not. But let's see. This may trigger. Or do we place our stop at a good spot? There's the SPY selling off. Oh, so Roku, nice strong wick right there. So now what I'm actually going to do is if you want to, you can put your stop just beneath the wick. I think my stop is just fine where it is. And we're going to see if Roku, was this a stick save? Or if Roku is going to keep going up, or if it's going to trigger me out. Stop is still holding just barely. Likely to tag out right now. Let's see. Let's see if we get the order. Oh, it's knocking on the door. That just tagged out. 225.70. So not too bad a slippage. And so there we go. We're completely stopped out of Roku. And Roku went as low as 224.63 on that wick. And that tagged everything out. In fact, actually, this has got so oversold that this is probably a dip buy on Roku if you wanted to take that, if this shows confirmation that it's starting to bounce. But let's see where we go. No new trades. There we go. So we can see that we have a little bit of support. If we start to see some support, I will buy the market on Roku. Okay, there we go. I just saw the bid come on above 225. There we go. We just got back 20 shares. And now what we can do is we can have a really nice tight stop loss on Roku, 224.44. And what we're going to do is actually we're going to do a OCO on the shares. And we're just going to do this with 10 shares, 30, 20, 10. We're going to do single order, OCO, duplicate, and let's set our take profit at 232 right there, and let's set our stop just underneath 224.44, and that's right there. Here's our order. So now if Roku comes down there, we will be stopped out, and if Roku hits our target, it'll hit our target. We are in the money, and this is only 10 shares. If we want to, we can actually raise our stop. I want to see Roku put in a pivot before I raise my stop. There's a small little pivot. Here's a pivot right here. Let's put in our stop right just underneath here, 225.43. Because we have this is resistance. Remember, support broke down. Now the floor becomes the ceiling. Look at that. We came down back to the support. Now it's resistance, so now Roku is struggling just a little bit right now. But now we're starting to base out just above 226.13. Let's try and raise our stop just a little bit, and this is a stop for profit. If it wants to make us more money, we're going to let it make us more money. So just raising the stop, leaving the take profit relatively at the same spot at 232, but we're going to just be inching up our stop. If Roku wants to give us more money, we're going to let it give us more money. And right now it's starting to break resistance. Not a lot of volume though on this move. Let's see if Roku can get going or not. Okay, Roku. There's it starting to move up. Let's slowly inch up our stop just underneath this support, 226.44. There we go. There goes Roku. Nice, good extended candle. Volume's coming in. People are wanting to buy Roku right now. That's great to see. Let's say I want to take half profits right now because we're extended and we're starting to show a red candle. Let's see if this will take us out. Nope, we're still in. Still in just underneath this candle. Generally, I don't like to put a stop just above support, but if it's for taking profit and you still have some other open profit, that's okay. We're just going to inch up our stop now. Inching up our stop. Let's see if this tags out. That might tag out. It's getting close. I'm tempted. The reason I'm raising my stop is because I want to take profits up here. And so since I want to take profits, instead of just hitting market sell, I want to see if Roku's going to either stop me out on the way down or if it can still build a base and keep going. So there we go. Didn't build the base. Just barely wicked me out. And so that was a nice good profit on those 10 shares riding from 224, maybe 225, let's say, all the way to 227.50. That's an extra $20. And now we still have 10 shares, but we don't have our stop order in. So what we're going to do is we can just place a break-even stop, 225.20. 225.20, let's find the spot. Maybe 225.20, 225.35. That was the reason I'm setting my stop right there. If we take a look, let's first set our stop. And there goes Roku. So that's the cost of getting just barely stopped out on those shares. But right about here, 225.70. That's kind of a midpoint support right there. So we're just underneath that. Technically, if I really want to, oh, and let's change this to 10 shares instead of 20. Boy, this is a long video. Let's get stopped out and let's see if we can wrap up the video. Please let me know if you liked or didn't like this video. This is just trading on the fly. No, I don't know what Roku is exactly going to do. Although this is a simulator, so you just have to take my word for it. But if you want to, you can hit auto send, and then you can just inch up your stop. I think I'm going to inch up my stop just underneath here now, 226.10. So now, if Roku hits our stop, 226.10, we will make $9 profit. However, we're trying to stay nice and relaxed and see if it can form a base up here. Notice how it's struggling with this supply zone area. There are still some sellers in this area, but if they get taken out, Roku can have another squeeze. The fact that it's hanging out up here is really good. This is where I'd have my stop. If you really want to have a super tight stop, we can move it just underneath 226.85, but as you can see, the SPY is selling off. The SPY is the tide of the ocean. So nice, good simulated trading. So look at that nice, good, strong wick. I think that is good enough to raise my stop just underneath that wick. Shield it. That's support now, it's telling me. And let's see if Roku wants to break out. Technically, if you want, you can add right here, but Roku is extended. See how that supply zone, it's still struggling in that area. We can watch the buyers, watch the sellers. There's still sellers at the 85.64. Now the sellers are stepping back just a little bit. Our stop is still in the money. And based on this open, just on $3 a share, 10 shares, this is just $2,000, making $35.70. Just protecting it. So now Roku's starting to break out. There's the breakout on Roku. A nice, good volume. Look at the volume coming up. Volume coming up, and now look at the explosion. Sellers are just getting taken out right now. 230 is probably going to be some strong resistance, so let's inch up our stop just a little bit, just in case there's a really big drop. Just underneath the supply zone, right up underneath 228.40. And if we want, we can just start halving our shares. So let's say just in front of 230, I know there's going to be some sellers, so let's, oh wow, so just broke through 230. Let's sell 5 shares of Roku. Just sold 5, and now let's change the number in our stop to 5 shares. And let's hit from -10 to -5. And I almost want to be done with this trade just because Roku is already at our target. We've traded really well on it. And just on these 5 shares, we're just riding them out. And let's see, I want to take profits right now. Normally I don't just hit the sell, but we got a good fill right there. And let's put our stop just underneath this candle, 229.43. It's tough because it's just above support, but it's enough to where that's why I want to take my profits. So let's see if this will tag out or not. So now we're starting to form a little bit of a base right here at 230. 230 just broke. That probably triggered a few stop losses. If this candle can turn and go green, I'll put my stop just beneath it. That almost tagged. Look at that. Almost tagged the stop right there, just by barely a penny. So that's exactly what you want to see. Look at that. That's exactly what you want to see, just by a penny. Just by a penny. So now this candle's starting to turn green. Let's see if it breaks the high. I'll put my stop just underneath 230. Oh, here it comes. Here it comes. Nope. Still holding. Still held. Stop still held. That's amazing. Okay, now that didn't. There you go. Just tagged out right there. 229.34. So barely a little bit of slippage. Let's see if this becomes support, just out of curiosity. The old former breakout area usually is support. Let's see what happens. And this old supply zone should become a new demand zone. And there we go. It's starting to pull up. You can get a nice good 0.25% if you just had your limit order sitting right there. You can just look at this nice little downtrend. Just looking, this is how my mind works when I'm trading. But alrighty, hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you got kind of my thought process as I'm trading. Look at that. Nice good demand zone dip buy. So hopefully you learned something new. Look at that. Right off the demand zone. Look at that nice monstrous explosion. So that's why you want to trail your stop just beneath the demand zone, or the old supply zone, now new demand zone, because then you wouldn't have been tagged out and we'd still be riding Roku to the upside. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you kind of learned my thought process. Look at the SPY, it's ripping, so rising tide lifts all boats. Hopefully you learned how to place an OCO bracket, why we always want to try and raise our sell orders or just raise our stops whenever we can. This is just kind of a random example, Monday last week. And hopefully you can take this knowledge and see where you can raise your stops and minimize your risk. Alrighty, thanks for tuning in. See ya.